Discover the incredible moment when a hidden maid transformed a crying billionaire son forever. Ethan Hartwell stood at the edge of the expansive garden, his breath hitching in the weighty air of the estate he both loved and loathed. It felt like a gilded cage, each flower bed meticulously curated, each statue a reminder of his father's achievements. But those successes, gleaming with wealth, felt suffocating, like thousands of tonnage resting upon his slender shoulders. The loss of his sibling shook him like a tempest. Grief unfurled in knots deep in his chest, twisting uncomfortably against the polished veneer of his life. To the world, he was the prodigal son of a self-made billionaire, but inside, he was nothing more than a trophy on display, a garish symbol of success cloaked in despair. He wandered through the manicured hedges, seeking solace in shadows away from prying eyes and hushed whispers. Walking ahead, he found Rosa, the quiet maid who commanded the gardens with an artistry rarely seen by the likes of him. She moved gracefully, her hands dancing over the delicate petals, and for the first time, Ethan felt a flicker of recognition, a connection to someone long overlooked in the chaos of wealth. Rosa had listened, even if silently. Her warm laughter, a melody of resilience, echoed in his mind. While he draped himself in layers of denial, she embodied the beauty of struggle, a brush with hardship that whispered hope. As they chatted in stolen moments, inviting conversation shifted from mundane chores to deeper reflections on life. Her words, filled with wisdom, made him question the pressure he carried, urging him to confront his own buried sorrow. Art speaks where words fail, she mused once, her gaze steady. A challenge lay there, a beckoning call that tugged at something yearning inside him. But each time he felt the urge to share his grief, a wound still festering, self-doubt clawed at him. He hesitated, afraid his pain would resonate outside of the boudoirs of sadness, too raw against the canvas of privilege. Fear tightened around his throat, suffocating him until those moments of quiet seemed fleeting, and regret lingered like a shadow. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as the tension rose, so did the stakes. Tonight's gathering wasn't an ordinary dinner. It was a masquerade for investors. To his father, it was a stage to showcase the family's unyielding success. Ethan could sense the pressure. The expectation suffocated him, clawing at him to conform, to wear a mask of perfection. Yet, the closer the evening approached, the more he felt drawn to Rosa's authenticity. A sudden explosion of voices shattered his thoughts as the party commenced, and with it, the conflict within him swelled to a breaking point. Would he remain the obedient son lifting the family legacy, or embrace vulnerability over gloss? The cacophony of clinks and laughter funneled into agony as he desperately searched the crowd for Rosa. And in that whirlwind moment, the night reaching its crescendo, Rosa appeared beside him, her presence a breath of fresh air. Just then, as the gathering's voices faded into a dull roar, Ethan felt a burgeoning awareness ignite inside him. The weight of expectation simmered, and what had once seemed impossible now frightened him with its strength. Would he confront his father about what success truly meant amidst all this opulence, or would he continue this torturous masquerade? In the thrumming silence of uncertainty, Ethan hovered on the precipice of revelation, teetering between the expected and the uncharted. The relentless thrum of laughter and music pulsed around Ethan as he stood at the edge of the crowd, Rosa's presence piercing through the facade of festive artifice. Timeless moments stretched in his mind, forcing him to confront the looming question: who was he beyond the gilded inheritance? As the faces around him blurred, He could almost hear Rosa's casual yet profound truths brushing against his consciousness, like the petals she nurtured. He felt a primal urge to shed the cloak of pretense, to bare the layers of grief that had long formed a protective shell. Ethan could sense the party's energy shift, the spotlight now aimed squarely at him, waiting for performance. With every passing second, he wrestled with the turbulence within, heart pounding like a drumbeat urging him to speak. "Ethan," a voice cut through the haze, sharp and authoritative. It was his father, Lord Hardwell, eyes gleaming. The image that stood before Ethan loomed larger than life, but it was merely a figurehead of the success and wealth that suffocated him. "You're required for a photo op. Come, show the world how well you've turned out." The command pressed against Ethan's chest, squeezing out air. He felt the crushing weight of expectation settle on his shoulders, a burden he was tired of carrying. Just as he was about to acquiesce like every other time, Rosa's earlier words echoed in his mind, a gentle nudge toward authenticity. Art speaks where words fail. Positive tensions coiled within him, aligning with an instinct he had long ignored. In that instant, he decided to defy the script. Ignoring the tightening grip of compliance, Ethan turned toward Rosa instead, drawing strength from her composed stance. In the midst of his father's world, a place of precision and decorum, Rosa exuded a vibrant authenticity he found intoxicating. "Actually, I need a moment." It was surprising how confident his voice sounded, each word liberating a portion of the anxiety that bound him. He stepped away from his father's command, eyes wandering back to Rosa. She was an unexpected refuge in a sea of expectations. Ethan approached her, the din of the masquerade becoming a distant hum as he focused solely on her. Can we talk?" he stammered, seriousness overtaking the usual charm he wore like armor. What did it matter now? About everything. With her ever-supportive presence, Rosa nodded, her warm smile promising not to judge his vulnerability. They slipped away from the thumping music to a quieter corner of the garden, where the manicured beauty matched the emotion swirling in him. "Rosa, what if everything I've been told about success is wrong?" The words poured out, startling him with their honesty. "This life feels so hollow. I want something real. But what if I fail? What if I let everyone down?" She stepped closer, her expression fervent with understanding. "Failure is part of growth. Real success is not just the image you project, it's how you feel about the journey. You carry that goodness inside you, Ethan. Don't fear uncovering it." In that moment, illuminated by moonlight, Ethan felt a sliver of hope. The more they spoke, the clearer he became about a newfound resolve. He'd spent too long hiding in the shadows of perfection, and the thought of confronting his father about what a legacy meant was both terrifying and liberating. Emboldened by Rosa's sincerity, he realized this moment was not merely a turning point, it was the impetus for a profound transformation he never thought possible. Breath hitching, he resolved to face his father, to demand a discussion about their future not dominated by wealth, but by authentic connection. The weight of that choice settled into him, like a spark igniting a slow-burning flame. Then, just as clarity emerged, a sudden movement near the estate caught his attention. Someone was watching the two of them, someone familiar, who would inevitably complicate Ethan's intentions further. As sharp as the bite of the evening air, the tension in the garden shifted once again. The moment had arrived when he must grapple not just with familial expectations, but with unforeseen challenges threatening to unravel all the progress he'd just begun to claim. Ethan's breath caught as he met the gaze of the figure lingering at the edge of the shadows, the familiarity twisting like a knife in his gut. His sister, Claire, stood there, her expression a mixture of concern and judgment. Underneath her composed exterior, he sensed the emotional storm brewing. She had always worn her expectations like a crown. As he contemplated their next move, the muffled sounds of the party faded into nothingness. The air thickened with anticipation, the stakes rising to an unbearable crescendo. He could choose to rush back to the familiar world of facade and smiles, or he could embrace the vulnerability of this moment, continue his journey towards self-truths, and confront not just his father, but also the expectations that Claire had just as intensely imposed on him. "Ethan!" Claire's voice drew sharper, almost sarcastic, as if she were calling for attention in a crowded room. "What is going on? Why are you standing here hiding?" Heat flooded his cheeks, and Ethan felt the urge to explain himself, to fabricate a story that would keep the peace as it always had. Yet, it became increasingly clear that any response gouged deeper at the person he was trying to unveil. He had just begun to unravel the layers suffocating him, only to feel another twist tightening his throat. "Maybe I'm not hiding. Maybe I'm just choosing to be real for once," he shot back, surprising even himself with the assertiveness. As he watched her reaction, doubt flickered with shadows of understanding. She was aware of the pressure he endured, but had her own expectations rooted deep within their upbringing. Claire took a step forward, a bemused smile crossing her lips. "Real? You're seriously saying that when you're standing in the garden instead of owning your role at the event? What are you trying to prove?" A spark of defiance surged within him. Perhaps this confrontation was long overdue. "I'm trying to prove I'm more than what everyone expects of me, Claire. Can't you understand that?" Her laughter, light yet edged with skepticism, cut through him. "More than what? The successful Hartwell heir? You have everything ready for you, Ethan. Why throw it away just because you want a new story?" Ethan felt the brittle thread fraying as he recalled all the paths dismissed in pursuit of a safe image, the choking grip of success that poisoned every meaningful connection. The fear of failure echoed in the recesses of his mind, but something within him burned with clarity, a burgeoning sense of purpose that pressed forth to challenge her, to reject the caricature he had been painted into. "It's not about throwing anything away. It's about discovering what I wanted in the first place." His voice strengthened, untethered from the weight of expectations. He noticed a twinge of confusion cross her face, stirring up questions that mirrored his own. "Then what do you want, Ethan?" she asked, genuinely curious now. The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded. He hesitated. For the first time, the words came to him unencumbered by expectation. "I want to create art. To connect with people in a way that matters. I don't want wealth to be a safety net that traps me. I want something deeper." Claire's expression shifted, apprehension fading momentarily into surprise. "Art? You? Since when?" Ethan felt adrenaline surge through him, propelling him forward. "Since I found courage, Claire. Courage to challenge everything I thought I knew. To face Dad. To break out of the Hartwell mold." The intensity of his revelation hung thick between them, building a fragile bridge over the chasm of expectation. But the way she scrutinized him next brought fresh uncertainty. Was he ready to shatter not just their father's vision of success, but also the wavering dynamics of their sibling relationship? Before he could probe the depth of her understanding, a rustle broke the moment. Suddenly, the tension of past roles felt too delicate. The presence of their father loomed close behind, his voice low and controlled. "What is this?" Lord Hartwell's tone chilled the air, his disapproval palpable. Ethan felt his resolve deepening, but so did the stakes. The time had come to face the relentless repercussions of defying everything they were conditioned to accept. As their father advanced, voices of fear and hope swirled within Ethan. Could he hold his ground? Would this confrontation be the catalyst for change, or would it drag him back into the depths of the expectations he longed to escape? And more crucially, would Claire now side with him, or aim to restore the status quo they had always lived by? Reality began to blur once again, intensifying the charge of the moment, a moment not just about defiance, but a crossroads of transformational potential standing directly before him. Ethan's heart raced, a mix of defiance and dread pumping through his veins as Lord Hartwell's presence loomed like a thundercloud, heavy and oppressive. His father's piercing gaze, fixed on him with an intensity that cut through the fragile atmosphere, only heightened the tension in Ethan's chest. This wasn't just a confrontation about his dreams. It felt like an existential battle fought at the very foundation of his identity. "What is this?" Lord Hartwell's voice dripped with incredulity, demanding obedience in a world he meticulously controlled. Ethan felt Claire tense beside him, her weight shifting uncomfortably as if she was caught between them, struggling to decide which side to take. With each deliberate step closer, his father seemed to weave into the fabric of Ethan's insecurities. The legacy of Hartwell's success pressed heavily on him, echoing the numerous conversations that had long ago suffocated him. The precious trust in his father's eyes was about to shatter. "I'm just expressing myself," Ethan managed to reply, surprised by the steadiness of his voice. Those words had never before taken shape on his tongue, and yet here they were a spark in the dark. "Expressing yourself?" Lord Hartwell repeated, incredulity twisting into something darker. "What do you know of expression? You've always had everything handed to you on a silver platter. Why throw it all away for meaningless pursuits?" A frisson of anger ignited within Ethan. He was standing at the precipice of everything he'd wanted to say, everything he'd never been allowed to voice in their rigid world. The past clung to him, a heavy shroud of expectations and ambitions birthed out of fear not his own. "Meaningless?" His words cut through the air. "Is that what you think of art? Of passion? You view everything as currency. But I want more than your legacy. I want a life shaped by my choices, not by what you dictate." Silence engulfed them, and he felt Claire shift beside him, uncertainty painted all over her face. Both of them were remnants of the same upbringing, yet standing on diverging paths now. Would she step forward with him, or retreat in defense of the familiar? Lord Hartwell's brow furrowed, a storm brewing behind his icy blue eyes. "You're out of your depth, son. You're choosing this in a moment of childish rebellion." Ethan's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from a sense of awakening. Each accusation brought to light his internal struggle, the gnawing doubt that had plagued him for too long. The weight of his father's words no longer shackled him. Instead, they seemed to forge an iron resolve deep within. "I may be defying you now, but it's not rebellion, it's honesty. It's everything I've hidden behind for years," Ethan pressed, aware that this singular moment held the power to either free or ensnare him forever. "I can't let your vision dictate my life any longer." The silence returned, thickening around them like fog, but now it felt different. It was charged. He looked at Claire, searching for a sign of understanding, a common ground against their father's looming shadow. Would she support him, or was the weight of familial bonds too much to bear? In that instant, her gaze shifted slightly, revealing a flicker of something deeper, perhaps understanding, or maybe a shared fragility. Then Lord Hartwell laughed, a humorless sound, dismissing Ethan's conviction. "You think you can simply walk away from your responsibilities? Hartwells don't abandon their path." But Ethan felt a new current pulling him closer to his truth, far stronger than the ties binding him to his past. "It's not abandonment. It's a search for meaning beyond what is carved out for us. Even if you can't see it, I deserve to explore who I can be on my own." As his words faded, a strange lightness filled Ethan. Hadn't he lived in fear of this exact moment, fearing rejection, judgment, and blame? Yet here he stood, willing to confront both his father and his own demons in one fell swoop. The ground beneath him felt unsteady, but he understood he was rooted deeper than before. Claire's reassessing gaze suddenly anchored him, a lifeline in an unfamiliar storm. Just as Ethan began to hope he would find lasting support in her eyes, Lord Hartwell drew himself up, deceptively calm. "Do you truly believe you can outrun the reputation of the Hartwells? You will be disappointed, Ethan. Disgrace follows those who turn their back on family. A suffocating wall of uncertainty surged back into Ethan's consciousness. Was he prepared to dive into the abyss, fighting outward from the darkness? Could the clarity of his passions fuel a new reality, or would the gravitas of family legacy prove insurmountable? The answer, as he stood there, heart racing and resolve both fizzing and simmering, remained tantalizingly out of reach. But one thing became achingly clear in that moment. The true battle was just beginning, and it demanded every ounce of the courage he had uncovered so far. And as he looked at his father, summoning the strength he'd fought for, he realized this confrontation was only the first act in a much larger play about to unfold, a play where every choice would define who he was. What would come next when the real weight of truth pressed against the fragile lines of family and ambition? Ethan knew he was on the precipice of a transformation that would reverberate far beyond this garden confrontation. Ethan felt the air grow thick with emotions, a wall built from tension rising between him and his father. As he stared at Lord Hardwell, the realization that this was more than a mere disagreement settled uneasily in the pit of his stomach. It was a pivotal moment, echoing a clarion call for authenticity that had long been silenced within him. Claire, standing beside him, was a mirrored reflection of his autonomy, yet her expression hinted at a subtle storm. The uncertainty hidden in her eyes betrayed a struggle of her own. Would she remain loyal to a legacy dictated by her father, or would she summon her own courage to stand by him? The silence dissolved as Lord Hardwell abruptly broke it, his voice low and deliberate. You will ruin your life with this nonsensical rebellion. Just as you've tarnished the family name by standing there, head held high, defying everything we've built. Ethan felt a surge within him, a defiance that tugged at the corners of his consciousness. Tarnish? He echoed incredulously, the word waiting to take flight. In trying to honor a legacy that isn't mine, I've only learned how broken I truly am. The dismissal in his father's demeanor was a tempest in itself, and Ethan pressed onward, emboldened by the clarity of his own voice. Hidden beneath layers of familial expectation lay a yearning that couldn't be snuffed out. These are not just walls you built. They are prisons that confine me, and I refuse to stay confined any longer. Lord Hardwell's face darkened, a flicker of surprise battling against rage. The familiar ring of privilege echoed louder now, and the fear of giving it up lingered like fog on a lake. Down through the years, Ethan learned to chase approval, to shape his worth around his father's ambitions. But standing here, confronted by his truth, he felt compelled to redefine himself no longer an extension of his father's ambition, but as something new and unapologetic. Ethan turned to Claire, searching her gaze again. He had hoped for a shared understanding. Perhaps the spark of rebellion would ignite a fire between them, one that could push them both toward a new destiny. I don't want to turn my back on family, he continued, but how can I honor it while suffocating the essence of who I am? Her eyes flickered, caught between loyalty and the budding awareness of her own desires. Moments passed like calculations in her mind, but an unmistakable pureness radiated from her. Ethan steadied himself against the tides of doubt that pulled at him. He felt untethered, but the whirlwind that once intimidated him became a catalyst for growth. Would you choose the path that has already been etched for you, or would you brave the unknown alongside me? He asked quietly, a challenge that trembled as it escaped his lips. The question rang heavy with consequence. They both stood at a crossroad of their lives, aware that each choice would shape not just their futures, but the very foundations they were built upon. Lord Hardwell took a step back, hesitating for the first time. His authority didn't crumble, but fissures of uncertainty appeared in the rigid facade he meticulously crafted. Ethan could sense the struggle between his father's sense of control and his own deep-seated fear of losing everything they built together, confronting one another. The tension between father and son transformed into a palpable silence as time ticked on, the future hanging precariously between them. Ethan's body thrummed with a newfound energy, as if stepping onto a stage he once believed he had no right to claim. He was not just engaging in a battle for his dreams, but fighting for a more profound understanding of his own identity. Would he unravel the tightly wound threads of his past, or weave them together into something completely new? As the air pulsed with unfamiliar resilience, Ethan abruptly wondered did Claire now possess the same spark to rise to her own life, or would fear draw her back into the shadows of their upbringing? What happens next, he realized, was not just about him. It was a beckoning call for both of them to choose. With every ounce of determination forged in that fleeting moment, he felt poised on the brink of something monumental, a first step towards authenticity trembling before him. If you walk away from this, Lord Hardwell's voice edged, you risk despair that comes from chasing delusions. Are you prepared for that? Oh, but that's just it, isn't it? Ethan's voice held steady now. Despair comes from living a life that isn't genuinely mine. And as the echoes of that truth hung in the air, Ethan sensed the world shifting beneath him, a new foundation forming where an old one had crumbled. The time had come to face what lay ahead, his heart alight with the thrill of uncharted potential and the longing to discover who he could truly be. What awaited him beyond this moment? Would the leap yield freedom, or merely plunge him deeper into uncertainty? Ethan stood in the midst of swirling uncertainty, acutely aware of the gravity of his decision. The weight of Lord Hardwell's disapproval lingered in the air like impending rain. The silence now felt oppressive, making every heartbeat echo in his ears. He glanced sideways at Claire, sensing her internal struggle mirrored his own. They both faced a choice, each tethered to a reality that no longer felt right. The legacy that had once seemed like a grand tapestry upon which he could weave his own dreams had begun to unravel. Each thread woven by his father had become a noose around his potential, squeezing him into a mold that fit neatly into Lord Hardwell's vision. Yet now, as if a fuse had been lit, something explosive ignited within him, and he yearned to capture that transformative fire. With a deep breath, Ethan faced his father again, determined. You think rebellion is disgraceful, but I see it as a chance to reclaim what has been taken from me. It may not fit your mold, but it's mine to explore. Something fierce flickered in Ethan's eyes, an unexpected clarity emerging from emotional chaos. Lord Hardwell's brow creased, not just with anger but something Ethan could almost dare to name fear. It nagged at his father, creeping into the cracks of his carefully constructed facade. Ethan seized that moment. This isn't just about me anymore. Claire deserves to find her own voice too, free from long shadowing expectations. He turned towards Claire, desperate for her to see what was at stake, not just for himself, but for the aspirations she might have buried beneath her family's weight. We both have been shaped by these expectations. Are you prepared to break free with me? We can redefine our futures together. A glimmer of resolve sparked in her eyes, momentarily pushing aside the veil of doubt. Ethan's heart raced at this flicker of hope, a small flame he hoped would transform into something more substantial. But doubt was a stubborn visitor. Would Claire act upon the internal shift, or would she retreat into the safety of her family's embrace? In that silence, he felt the ground shift beneath him yet again. Was it up to him to carve a path? Or could they forge ahead together, independent of their family's dictates? It was an exhilarating but terrifying notion. Each decision felt seismic, rippling through their futures unpredictably. Ethan, Claire murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, as if saying it aloud would shatter the fragile moment. If I choose to stand alongside you, to step away from the pedestal my father has placed me on, I truly have no idea what that would look like. Ethan nodded slowly, understanding the vulnerability laced in her words. The unknown was daunting, but he felt it was precisely what both of them needed to navigate if they were to forge their paths authentically. It will be scary. It may seem messy, but it could lead us to the most meaningful version of ourselves. At that moment, Lord Hartwell interjected, his voice an imposing shadow that loomed over their tentative alliance. "This is madness," he said harshly, anger breaking through his controlled demeanor. "You think you have it all figured out, but this world will chew you up and spit you out. There is no safety in this rebellion." Even as Lord Hartwell's words aimed to intimidate, Ethan felt fortified, emboldened by the truth he was discovering within himself. "What you define as madness is a liberation I am yearning for. It may be the only way to prevent despair in my life." Silence stretched over the room again, thick and tense. Ethan could see the fight inside his father's eyes, a collision of heart and pride. He felt exhilaration swirling, like stirring a pot of emotions that had been scarcely addressed. Everything was about to change, and it could either crumble or evolve into something vibrant. "Make your choice, Ethan," Lord Hartwell finally challenged, pressing his palm against the polished table. "Sever your ties, or secure them once more. But whatever you decide, remember the price." Heart racing with the significance of that moment, Ethan stepped closer to Claire, his hand brushing against hers. The potential of making a decision that could transform their lives pulsated between them. Would they traverse a path that had been carved by their own desires side by side? As uncertainty loomed on the horizon, Ethan felt his resolve solidify as the world narrowed down to this pivotal crossroad. The thrill of an uncertain future awaited, beckoning him and Claire beyond the walls that confined them both. And just as the weight of the moment pressed in from every side, he posed a question that lay heavy and unspoken between them. "Will we take the leap together?" The air thickened with the weight of that choice, their next steps obscured yet tantalizingly close. What awaited them beyond this precipice of their lives? Ethan's heart thundered like a distant storm, each beat resonating with his newfound determination. The air was electric, and the words left unspoken gathered like vapor, waiting to condense into clarity. Would they leap, or would they linger in hesitation? "Tell me you're with me, Claire," he urged, his voice barely a whisper, as if the mere act of vocalizing it could solidify their pact. Claire's expression shifted, the fog of uncertainty momentarily lifting. "If we step into the unknown together, we need a plan. I can't just abandon everything without knowing where we're headed." Ethan searched her gaze, seeing the hints of fear braided with a flicker of courage. "Then let us create that plan. What do you want? What do you see for yourself when the weight of expectation isn't pressing down on you?" She considered his question, her brow furrowing in concentration. "I've always loved art. There's a part of me that wishes I'd pursued it seriously instead of being groomed for whatever it is my father envisioned." "That sounds incredible," Ethan said, a rush of excitement coursing through him. "We could explore that together. I've always believed your talent was worth more than just decorum. You deserve to paint your own path." "It's not easy to imagine," she admitted, appearing vulnerable yet increasingly resolute. "What about you? What is it that you truly want?" Ethan hesitated. He had spent so much time contemplating freeing Claire that he hadn't focused on himself. "I want independence. I want to explore what drives me, not what is expected of me." There was a fire in his voice, ignited by a fervor he had tried to suppress. "I used to think success was about conforming to my father's ideals, but what if I could redefine it as my own journey, one that isn't imprisoning?" A flicker of mutual understanding illuminated Claire's features, their fears melding into a shared resolve. In that moment, an unspoken feat formed. They would carve out their destinies from their parents' expectations, refusing to be chiseled into shapes that served others. "Then let us find a way to embrace our true selves," Claire suggested, her voice steadier now. "Together." Ethan nodded, an overwhelming sense of camaraderie swirling between them. "We need to step out from under their shadows. The longer we wait, the more invisible we'll become. Those choices they made for us can't dictate our futures anymore." A bold statement, coming from a Hartwell, she teased lightly, but the weight of their shared understanding pulsed beneath the surface. Being confrontational has never been my strong suit, he reflected, a pang of discomfort edging in. But I've realized that if I don't confront my truth, I risk losing myself entirely. As their resolve crystallized, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. How could they initiate a shift that would resonate both personally and professionally? With a blend of calculated courage, he suggested, we can find new mentors, authentic voices, who can guide us toward what we want, not away from it. Claire's eyes danced with possibilities. Art and teaching, perhaps? Exposure to artists who value their voice as much as their skill. And what about your aspirations getting involved with real solutions for mental well-being in business? Exactly. Exploring those avenues can help us flourish without dictated constraints. We'll surround ourselves with people who facilitate growth, not hinder it. The notion brought a palpable sense of liberation, treating the future as a blank canvas, wider than the horizons they had so far perceived. Yet, in the midst of their planning, doubt encroached. What will we say to our families? Claire hesitated. How do we even begin to explain our departure from the paths they laid? We don't owe them a comprehensive explanation, Ethan replied, finding strength in his voice. We only need to remain true to what we've discovered about ourselves. Our choices belong to us, even if they are met with resistance. But doubt loomed in his mind. Lord Hartwell's anger would inevitably follow. Are we really prepared for the fallout? Claire asked. Concern etched into her brow. We will be, Ethan assured her, feeling the weight of responsibility settle into his chest like a heavy cloak. It's time to prioritize our own happiness. The storm may come, but together we can weather it. Yet, as they stood on the precipice of their newly defined freedom, an unsettling question lingered in Ethan's mind. Were they truly prepared to weather the consequences of their choices? He felt the enormity of that declaration swell within him, but adrenaline coursed too strongly to allow doubt to grip the moment. Claire, as daunting as the journey ahead is, we have to take that leap. Lives waited for too long in shadows can't be lived half-measured, can they? But just before they moved forward, the unmistakable sound of heels clicked against the polished floor, reflecting an intrusion that would challenge their commitment. Ethan turned, instinctually tensing at the sound, as if a sudden gust had blown through their carefully constructed moment of resolve. Claire, too, stiffened beside him, their shared determination quickly infiltrated by the looming presence of uncertainty. A figure emerged from the corridor, her silhouette sharp against the light. It was Miss Sullivan, his father's long-standing assistant, a woman used to commanding her space with authority. Her expression bore a mix of surprise and disapproval, raising the stakes of their decision in an instant. "Mr. Hartwell, I've been looking for you," she announced, her tone clipped. Caught between his aspirations and the heavy hand of expectation, Ethan felt the weight of her gaze compress his heart. "What is it?" he replied, more curtly than intended, aware that his frustration didn't just stem from the intrusion, but from the nagging realization that he had a life to reclaim. "Your father wishes to speak with you. He has noticed your absence in the meeting and insists you join him immediately." Beneath the surface, Ethan's anger simmered. How often had Lord Hartwell's demands molded his decisions? The momentum they had built felt fragile now, like a painting left out in the rain. "I'll be there shortly," he replied, his resolve firm. He turned back to Claire, whose expression mirrored his own trepidation. "We've arrived at a crossroads, haven't we?" she said softly, but he heard the strength in her voice. "Every crossroads feels like both an opportunity and an impending storm," Ethan admitted. "But I can't allow my father to dictate my choices any longer. We have to stand firm." Miss Sullivan remained. A stubborn specter loomed against the backdrop of their potential freedom. Her presence invoked an internal conflict within Ethan. To leave would mean confronting his father, to stand down and face the consequences of disobedience. What if this is a distraction? Claire's voice was a gentle reminder of their shared mission. You must decide what is more important, your future or the expectations placed upon you. The thought ignited a flicker of clarity in Ethan's mind. What if? He began, then paused, as if the words had to be forged with intention. What if I tell my father that I'm stepping away from his vision for me? That I'm pursuing my own destiny? Claire's eyes widened, a mixture of admiration and fear. Ethan, that's a bold step. Are you ready for the fallout? A flood of adrenaline coursed in response to her question, igniting an electric conviction. If I'm not prepared now, when will I ever be? The realization washed over him. This was a moment to reclaim his narrative. Ethan's mind was racing. Inextricably linked to his purpose was the responsibility to speak his truth, to liberate himself from satisfaction built only for others. I'm not just asking for permission, I'm taking ownership of my life. Claire's supportive grip on his arm reignited his resolve. Then I'm with you, she affirmed. We're in this together. You have to confront him. The person he expects you to be isn't the person you are. Miss Sullivan, sensing the shift, now looked at Ethan with a mixture of respect and disbelief. I recommend you tread carefully, Mr. Hartwell, she warned, though the defiance in her voice was punctuated by a spark of intrigue. Ethan inhaled deeply, envisioning a future not dictated by others, a path laden with uncertainty, yes, but one that held his growth. I will confront him. Today marks a new chapter, not just for me, but for us both. Inwardly, he felt the swell of anxiety, but it was overshadowed by a burgeoning sense of empowerment. The push for his own future felt intoxicating. Together, we can forge ahead. Let us embrace whatever comes next, Claire said, a determined fire flickering in her eyes. As they stood side by side. As he turned away from Miss Sullivan, leaving behind the chains of expectation. A dull thrum of trepidation settled deep within him. But he was poised to challenge. Now, standing on the brink of confrontation, another thought pressed upon him. What if facing his father unveiled truths wasn't he prepared to hear? Ethan squared his shoulders and stepped forward with Claire, knowing they were about to step into their greatest trial yet. Just as he reached for the heavy oak door to his father's office, a thrill of anticipation gripped him. What awaited them on the other side? Ethan paused before the heavy oak door, a surge of emotion swirling within him. This moment felt monumental, as if the air around him thickened with unspoken words and hidden concerns. He could hear Claire's quiet support close behind, her presence anchoring him as he drew in a steadying breath. The nerves constricting his chest were undeniable, but they were soon replaced by a fierce determination. Finally, he turned the knob and stepped into his father's office, where Lord Hartwell sat regally behind a vast mahogany desk, acknowledging his entrance with a pointed gaze. The familiar surroundings, plastered with accolades and reminders of his father's relentless pursuit of success, made Ethan swallow hard. This room had always been a realm of expectation, but today it felt different. Today it felt like a battleground. Ethan, his father said with an edge of disapproval, his voice dripping with authority, you missed a critical meeting. I trust there's a good explanation. Dad, we need to talk, Ethan replied, surprising himself with the calmness of his tone. I can't keep following a path that isn't mine. I want to pursue my own vision. The words hung heavy in the air. The flicker of surprise in his father's eyes quickly transformed into a steely glare. You think you can just step away from your responsibilities? This is not just about you. It's about the legacy we've built. It's exactly about me, Ethan countered, drawing strength from the conviction that had propelled him to this moment. I appreciate everything you've done, but that legacy isn't my own. I need to forge my own path, one that reflects who I truly am, not the image you painted for me. Lord Hartwell leaned back, crossing his arms. And what do you intend to do? Leave everything you've known behind? Do you even have a plan? Perhaps that's the point, Ethan shot back, confronting the challenge as it emerged. I want to have your plan dictate my future, and maybe not having one right now is part of my journey. I want to know until I try. As Ethan spoke, he felt an unsettling shift within himself. The fear didn't fully dissipate, but it transformed into an exhilarating sense of possibility. He was speaking not just to his father, but to the younger version of himself longing for authenticity, craving independence. His father's rigid demeanor threatened to crack, but he remained stoic. You'll regret this childish rebellion. You could lose everything. And for what? A fleeting whim? Maybe it's time you realize that what you consider a whim is my pursuit of happiness, Ethan replied, his voice unwavering. I'm not asking for your approval this time. I'm telling you who I want to be. There was an uneasy silence, the tension palpable, both men staring at one another, words unsaid rattling in Ethan's mind. Could he withstand the fallout? The fear of disappointing his father tightened around his chest, but he pushed it away, relentless. When Lord Hartwell finally spoke, it was with a controlled fury. You'll find that life outside my influence holds risks you cannot fathom. You aren't equipped to take on the world alone. Ethan felt a flicker of doubt in that statement, a reflection of everything he feared. But that fear transformed into resolve. I'm willing to take that risk. The question is, will you support me, or will you stand in my way? As the weight of his father's gaze bore down on him, Ethan felt the full force of his decision crashing over him. The bridge was burned. There was no turning back. The challenge to his father's authority, his fears, forced him to confront the very core of his identity. Turning towards Claire, who watched the exchange with bated breath, he realized he was no longer that boy seeking approval, but a man claiming his right to choose. Ethan's heart raced in anticipation. As he waited for his father's response, he found himself pondering what would remain of their relationship should they part ways on this radical difference. Was he prepared for the fallout, both personal and professional? The stage was set for an unexpected climax, and the only certainty was that the path ahead would not be easy. But one question loomed larger over all others. Would his father ultimately understand, or would this confrontation fracture the family bond forever? Ethan stood at the threshold of a pivotal moment, the air charged with emotion between him and Lord Hartwell. Each heartbeat echoed in tandem with the weight of expectation that had defined their lives. This wasn't merely a conversation. It unfolded like a gripping drama, perilous yet vital. He had confronted layers of himself during this journey. The innermost fear now crystallized into fierce determination to reclaim his narrative. Are you prepared for what lies outside your gilded cage? His father's sharp words cut like frost in the air, a bitter reminder of what had held Ethan captive for too long. I am more prepared than ever, Ethan replied, his voice steady. I want to allow myself to be coerced into a path that isn't mine. This declaration hummed like a banner of defiance, the truth liberating him from the chains he had borne. His father remained rigid, reflections of frustration flickering across his face. You believe you can simply abandon your responsibilities? Turn your back on the legacy built by our family? I can assure you, reality doesn't align with naive fantasies. No, Dad, Ethan countered, feeling a surge of clarity envelop him. It's not naivete. It's a commitment to live authentically, something I've denied myself for too long. The emptiness of following a path you laid out for me has become unbearable. In that moment, Lord Hartwell's facade momentarily faltered a crack, exposing the vulnerability trapped beneath his authoritarian exterior. The two men stood, poised at the brink of turmoil. Ethan felt emboldened, knowing this confrontation held the potential to fracture their tense relationship or pave the way for a breakthrough. Ethan searched for his father's eyes, hoping to reach a semblance of understanding and acknowledgement of the truth he had unearthed. Dad, success isn't just about wealth or reputation. It's about the impact I want to make, the connections I wish to forge. And you think this current path will lead you to that impact? Lord Hartwell retorted, his scoff echoing disappointment, as if scorning Ethan's capacity to see beyond his gilded world. I believe it opens opportunities for myself that I have previously smothered, answered Ethan, voice unwavering. This was about growth, about establishing his own identity away from family expectations. The silence that followed hung thick between them, heavy with the tension of unsaid words. Ethan felt alive in this reckoning, not merely as his father's son, but for the first time as Ethan Hartwell, an individual who was stepping into his own light. Do you know where your choices could lead you? Lord Hartwell's tone grew softer, almost pleading in a way that shattered Ethan's pulse. You could fall among those who abandon their families, their futures for fleeting pursuits. Ethan shook his head. The truth surged stronger than the shadows of fear. It's not abandonment, it's seeking authenticity. Refusing to be a puppet in your grand design doesn't equate to failing my role in the Hartwell legacy. The vulnerability in Lord Hartwell's eyes surprised Ethan. Just when he expected anger, he saw something softer, a flicker of understanding, possibly regret. This isn't the control I wanted to exert over you. It was love concealed in ambition. Is it? Ethan challenged gently. Then allow me to love myself by embracing my own choices. I wish to create a narrative of my own, something authentic and vibrant. After a moment that stretched like a tightrope between fear and understanding, Lord Hartwell inhaled sharply. I didn't foresee your choice to redefine success, he admitted reluctantly, as if the words burned like embers on his tongue. But understand, the road ahead will be fraught with uncertainty. Ethan smiled softly, hearts and minds finally bridging the chasm between expectation and desire, a connection diffusing light into shadow. I've never been more certain. It's time for both of us to acknowledge our realities. He suddenly turned to Claire, her gaze now charged with empathy, pride shining in her eyes, as she realized he had proved his worth without his father's lens. You're right to seek what resonates inside, Ethan, Claire affirmed, taking his hand, anchoring both her choices and his truth in that singular moment. Together, they forged ahead. Together, Ethan echoed, his heart brimming with newfound confidence, individually resolute and collectively stronger. Ethan's demeanor shifted as he turned back to his father, the air of composure now settling firmly on him. Dad, I want to share my journey with you. Not in opposition, but as a way to educate and grow together. Can we foster a relationship that isn't defined by business, but by mutual aspiration? Lord Hartwell observed the two of them, his son standing in newfound conviction beside Claire before simply nodding, acknowledging this profound metamorphosis woven from bravery intertwined with dreams. We have a long way to go, son, he finally said, a hint of pride marking the edges of his tone. But if you're committed to your pursuit, I'll support your journey. At that moment, Ethan felt the burdens of doubt shed from his shoulders like chains falling away. Here, at the cusp of a legacy transformed through authenticity rather than obligation, lay the potential for personal growth that they could all navigate together. Recognition settled over him, affirming that hurting didn't mean failing, and that healing required courage, strength, and most importantly, hope. As they stepped out of the room, the world outside awaited, vibrant and bursting with possibilities, ready for the Hartwells to claim it on their terms. Ethan Hartwell was ready for this incredible leap into the unknown, leaving behind nothing but shadows of doubt as they entered the realm where their stories could truly begin. He achieved a personal revolution that day, a triumph that only the courageous find. The road ahead, shrouded in uncertainty, was marked by purpose. Embrace your potential. Seize your narrative now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.